Is the National Health Service underfunded? It is normal for politicians, when they are in opposition, to say that it is underfunded. It is normal for politicians who are in power to say that it is not. What are the facts? The facts are that in this country, every year huge numbers of people die from preventable diseases. And the figure for the most recent year available was just over 138,000. So a lot of people dying. And a lot of those would be people who could have been cured or successfully treated for a disease in an NHS hospital if the NHS had had sufficient money. So yes, I think it is underfunded. And the problem here, which I've touched on in a previous video, is that the NHS has a near monopoly on healthcare in this country, because you've got the NHS and you've got private hospitals, but very few people in this country can afford private hospitals. And that is why, for many people, most people in fact, the NHS is pretty much the zero option for healthcare. Now, some years back, I read an essay in a national newspaper which argued that the dream of the NHS was, and presumably still is, dead in the water. That no government in this country was ever going to achieve a properly funded National Health Service. Now, I like to think that's not true. But let's look at some facts. So last year, the NHS cost us, I think, £330 million every day, or in that order. This year, in the budget, there's been extra, is it £6 billion for the NHS? Something like that. And that would bring it up to about £346 million, maybe £347 million every day. A small increase. And Britain is, as I speak, in the process of leaving the European Union. Officially we're out, but we're still in a transitional period. As of next year, we should no longer be paying money to the EU, and that will release about £250 million a week or something like that, which can be spent elsewhere. And if that money goes to the NHS, then that would be an extra about 35 million a day, maybe 36 million. And so that would bring it up to about 380 million a day, maybe a bit more. And then there's HS2, which is currently under construction. And this is a huge railway line that ultimately is planned to run from London to Birmingham and then further north and apparently across the Pennines. And that is estimated to cost £400 million a mile. In other words, 1 mile of railway line will cost more than a day of running the NHS. And this is a railway line which I'm not sure anybody actually wants. I'm not sure this railway line will benefit the economy at all. Obviously, when you're spending the money and people working on building railway line, that's creating jobs. But if you put that money into the NHS, it will create jobs in the NHS. I believe that we could have a properly funded NHS in this country if we concentrated on the things that really matter, like healthcare, and try not to get too distracted by things which don't matter, like big engineering projects such as HS2, which might seem very glamorous, but ultimately may be of very little use. Should we keep the NHS, or should we move to another kind of system? That's something can be discussed academically, but in reality, most people in Britain have grown up with the NHS. Very few people can remember before the NHS, and therefore I think most people would not want to move to another system. I believe it is possible to have a properly funded NHS, and I believe that governments should try to move in that direction.